The following production is brought to you by the Talkin' Buds Leaf Show.
Here we go. Talkin' Buds Leaf Show, episode 278. I want to take you on a little trip with me to Saturday night, aka last night. The first period ends. I'm like, here we go. We're going to cruise to a victory over the team that's currently ranked 30th in the NHL. I'm going to come up. Tomorrow's a little different. We've only had a few days between episodes. Let's come up with some interesting conversation topics and just have like an interesting discussion about a John Tavares or a Matthew Nyes or something like that. Morgan Rielly. Then the Maple Leafs proceed to give up 5 unanswered goals to, as I previously stated, the 30th place team in the NHL. An opportunity to take sole possession of first place in the Atlantic Division. And you've said all year, we need to be mindful of leafy things. And in the leafiest of things, they piss away a golden opportunity to take top spot in the Atlantic. And here we are, a week after we spent 40 plus minutes ranting and raving about this team. Here we are once again, just dumbfounded at what we're seeing from this same group over and over and over again.
Yeah, that was an all-time bedwetting. An all-time crapping your pants moment when you need to, when it's there for the taking, what do? You just crap all over yourself. You go into that game, you look at the scores, you get 2 golden opportunities of both teams in Florida losing. You come out in the first period, you look like a hell of a hockey team. You go up. And even in the second period, I'm like, okay, they gave up. They're down, but they didn't play that bad. And it's like they can come out in the third period against the worst offense in the NHL and tie this game and send it to OT, at least get a point, maybe win. And they just suck. They just suck, and it's disappointing. And all those guys should be pissed off at themselves that they let an opportunity like that slip away from them when they don't finish first in this division.
Listen, I think we need to be careful today, like just kind of going too far off the deep end. And by me, I mean me, just ranting and raving about all this. But I went to bed last night and I'm laying there thinking about it. And I'm like, this is why Leaf fans are totally just in not feeling confident, having this team is unserious. You're an unserious operation when you do shit like this. And it's cliche to say, but what did we see? The New York Ranger game on Thursday, we did a post-game show after it. Yes, the Rangers are really struggling right now, but that was a team in the Leafs that just did not take their foot off the gas for 60 minutes, paid attention to detail. Like, that's the biggest cliche going right now, but it's true this time of year. Make sure you're in the right spots. Make sure you're picking up your assignments. Don't give the puck away. Don't pay attention, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And that's what happened last. They just went up 2-0. How many times in 9 years have we seen this movie of this team taking a lead and then saying, all right, we're done. Let's get out of here. And letting an inferior opponent back in and not only tying it, but winning it. 5 unanswered goals against a team like the Nashville Predators is completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable.
Yeah, and I like that too. To me, it doesn't need to be pretty. I don't need to walk away from that game going, God, they did every single thing correctly. That'd be nice. But it would be nice if you just found a way to get it done, no matter how you had to do it. And they couldn't do that last night, and they really pissed away an opportunity. 100%.
I feel like you watch, the game starts and the big boys are all rocking. John Tavares scores again. Matthews and Marner scores off a beauty set play with Matthews off a draw. And you're like, here we go. Big boys leading the way. And this year, every year I feel like there's a storyline that we thread through the year. In previous years, it's been confidence. And when a player has confidence, like a William Nylander, they can take their game to the next level. And for me, the storyline that's been thread this year is your best players set the tone. And when your best players play well in the first period and then pack it in, it permeates through the rest of the team. And yes, we're going to talk about third and fourth line personnel, and that matters and that's important. But at the end of the day, like Austin Matthews at the end of the game is like discussing the set play goal with Marner, and he goes, but at the end of the day, we lost, so who cares? And it's like, yeah, man, but like what? Like what happened? Where's the leadership? John Tavares, same thing. That line, you texted me halfway through the first period, and you said this second line is hounding pucks all of a sudden. And then for the next two periods, they were just like, that's enough.
Yeah. They got outworked, and it was an unfortunate set of circumstances, to be honest with you. It just wasn't.
It's a focus thing for me. It's just a focus thing for me. Berube
like, how do you like? Clearly, there's going to be times in games where you're not going to dominate the whole time. There's going to be. That's the way hockey goes. There's waves throughout a game. You're dominating the first period. They're going to dominate the second period. It's just, how do you find a way to just not bury yourself when you're in one of those points in the game where the other team's all over you? And I'm not looking at the goaltender either. And it's just like, how do you fight through those momentum shifts through a hockey game and find a way to get it done? Excuse me. And that's what the good teams do. And it just seems like when they really need a point or they really need to get a win or something, they just really have a hard time stopping the train when it starts going in the other direction. And I don't know what you do to fix that, to be honest with you. I really don't.
Well, I mean, again, I said earlier, we're not going to dive into this today because we just don't. But I think you look at culture again.
It's not the end of the world. Like, I'm not being there, but like, it's the end of the world. Like, everyone lost last night. It's not a big deal. It's a huge missed opportunity, and you're just kind of looking back, being like, how did this happen? And the same thing happened against the San Jose Sharks a couple weeks ago. It's just like, these are basically the two worst teams in the Western Conference, and we have a point in the game where the other team's all over us, so we just can't find a way to like stop it fully and just find a way to get it done. It just sucks, because now you wake up and they're still tied with the Florida Panthers.
We're going to turn the page here, and we're going to discuss one of your favorite topics, which is line combinations. I thought it was important to bring up today because Kipper and Bourne had a good conversation about it on Friday with Doug McLean, and they were basically making the point that Berube needs to get his third line sorted out, because when you get into the playoffs, a lot of times the big boys kind of cancel each other out, and it's your depth pieces that are going to score a big goal for you and make a difference on a night-to-night basis. And then last night, I saw a lot of people criticizing the deployment of the bottom six. I even texted you and said, you know what, since moving Bobby McMahon up to the second line, which is where he should stay. Like, I think their top six is pretty much set for the playoffs. I think McMahon is the other winger on that line with Nylander and Tavares. But since taking him off that third line and putting Pontus Holmberg there, that line is absolutely nowhere. And then we talked about it on Thursday, Scott Laughton, bringing in Scott Laughton and paying what you paid for him and putting him on the fourth line is, as much as I think that fourth line has his upside, like Laughton and Lorentz are two pretty heavy wingers. It's that third line to me is a black hole. And I think this is something, you look at all the guys they have available. How do you deploy? It's a mystery, man, because you have Max Domi, who in the last few weeks has looked a lot better, but I think consensus is among all of us, the dude is not, he's not at his best playing center. You've got Nick Robertson, who the whole Nick Robertson debate about whether he should play in the playoffs or not is fascinating to me, because on the one hand, Nick Robertson can score you a goal. Nick Robertson can bury it if he gets the opportunity, but can Nick Robertson succeed in the extremely physical, zero space type of game that is playoff hockey?
No.
And then there's the whole Laughton discussion. Like, should he be, you brought him in to be your third line center and he's playing fourth line wing, getting 9 minutes a night.
Yeah, that's to me, that's the answer to the whole thing. You went out and traded a first round pick for a guy who's going to shore up your third line. He just hasn't done that, and now he's not even getting the opportunity to do that. And that's your issue right there. I don't really, that's the only thing you can do. They only have so many players that can fit 6 roles in the bottom 6 for the forwards. No one's magically appearing here. The only solution is guys just start playing better. And Scott Law was brought in here to be the 3rd line center, and now he's playing wing on the 4th line with David Kampf. Like, so what is Max Domi really playing that much better at center than Scott Laughton is? Max Domi is just a really overrated hockey player. Like, he's just like he's a lot of intangibles that I really like, but most nights he's just kind of leaving you wanting more. And maybe he's just really not, I don't know. I don't want to say he's not good, but he's just, it seems like most nights it's like, this is the guy who needs to be the difference maker in the bottom 6, and he just doesn't do it. And Nick Robertson, the goal scoring is not positive enough to overlook the other parts of his game. It's just not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially when you get into the playoffs. That's what I keep coming back to. Like, the number one criticism of Nick Robertson is how small he is. And you're going to go out there and you're going to be, especially if you're playing in the bottom 6, you're going to get matchups against bigger guys who are out there lumbering around. And it's like, can he make a difference out there? Yeah. Like, the thing that I keep coming back to with him is every year their biggest issue. They have 2 massive issues in the playoffs every year: special teams and scoring. They can't score. Yeah. So you look at a guy like Nick Robertson and you're like, this is a guy who can, like, we've seen him rip it home a few times this year. Okay. So it's like, do you take him out, like, as opposed to like a Pontus Holmberg, who is an absolute fucking black hole of offense? Like, black hole. He has single-handedly, that 3rd line a few weeks ago with McMahon was rocking. And you put Pontus Holmberg there and they are nothing. They do nothing out there now.
Well, it's just what they did at the deadline did not address what they needed. They needed a 3rd line center and they went and got a 4th line winger. Like, it's just, so that's on, as much as we praise Brad Treliving, you're going to have to throw some criticism his way for this one. Because you didn't fix that problem. If you really wanted to fix that problem, you would have gave away Easton Cowan a couple more first round picks and got Braden Shen. And that would have been your 3rd line center that you could rely on. But instead you went out and you traded a 1st round pick for a 4th line winger. So that 3rd line is not fixed because the guy you brought in hasn't fixed it. So it sucks.
No.
And also like, can we like, I'm also done with just like hoping that Nick Robertson scores a goal in the playoffs. Like, how about Austin Matthews scores a fucking goal in the playoffs?
Well, again, but I think so. You just kind of took the words out of my mouth. I think if you're Berube, you have to ask yourself, like, what do I want from my bottom 6 in the playoffs? Because, like I said, the fact is they have struggled to score. The big boys cancel each other out and kind of shut each other down. So are you looking for a bottom 6 that is going to be checking? Because if you're looking for that, then you're thinking more like Holmberg. You're thinking more Yarncroc. You're thinking more Kampf. You're thinking more of those guys. But if you're like, no, we need someone that can possibly rip it home for us, then you're thinking Domi. You're thinking Robertson. And it's really... And I think that's something that Craig Berube... Listen, this is a valid criticism of Craig Berube. In previous years, Sheldon Keefe, we killed Sheldon Keefe for how could you get into the playoffs and still not have your lineup set? How can you be starting game 1 and still changing the lineup around as much as you are? And Craig Berube, just from the eye test, has no idea what he wants to do with his bottom 6. No idea.
Yeah.
Like, Steven Lorentz is a guy. He ripped one. He got a fortuitous bounce, but he ripped one home against Colorado the other day. Maybe you elevate Laughton and Lorentz to the 3rd line, and then you have a 4th line of.
I mean, what's the difference between the 3rd line and
the?
There's no difference between the 3rd line and the 4th line to me. Like, I just they're the same. Whenever one's playing better, you give more ice time. They don't have a checking bottom 6 because to me, a valuable checking bottom 6 is a 3rd line that is so good defensively that you could actually put them against the other team's top players and they can shut them down. Their bottom 6 is always going to get bottom 6 matchups. Austin Matthews is always going to be playing the other team's best player. So the whole checking thing, it's just out the window. Clearly, they don't have enough offense that they're going to like be counted on to score goals. So I actually thought their 4th line looked really fucking good for a period and a half last night. I thought Lorentz, Laughton, Camp, they did a good job of turning pucks over in their own end and then going the other way and spending time in the offensive zone, cycling the puck and getting them opportunities. To me, that is what your bottom six needs to do. They need to find a way to stay on the most positive side of the ice more times than not, and hopefully one of them can just bury one eventually. That's all I'm looking for those guys.
And I have no clue. We have no clue what's happening with like a Max Pacioretty still on IR. I don't.
I know. I was literally just looking at their lineup, but I go, I totally forgot he was even on this team.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know what the deal is with him. He's on IR. I don't know if they're saving him for the playoffs. I don't know if he's done for the year. Like I have no idea what the situation is with Max Pacioretty. But he's another guy that like if you threw him into the mix, maybe he could score you a goal. He can definitely lay a big hit. Yeah. But it's something that they do have to get figured out, man. Like it's really, it just looks like Berube doesn't know what he wants to do.
Well, there's so many like how many times can we shuffle the chairs here? Like it's just like, okay, well, now we move Domi to the wing, we move like you only have so many guys you're working with here. I think he's already tried everything. What hasn't he tried? He's tried everything. And sometimes it looks good for a stretch and then it goes away and then he goes back to something else and then it's just we come back to the same conversation. To me, the only solution to this problem is the guy you went out and traded for. I know last episode I said I felt bad for him and I'm going to give him some grace and I hope he plays better. But the guy you brought in here to shore up your center depth is just now playing wing on the fourth line and that's your problem right there. Is that your third line center is playing fourth line wing, and now Max Domi's back in the middle of the ice.
Yeah,
and him and Nick Robertson together are a combined 8'4". Like it's just like they like that line looks really small now with those, especially with Pontus on it too.
That the combination of those two guys on the same line is not going to work in the playoffs against the Florida Panthers. Like that's what I keep coming back to. Like I just they're too small together to be effective against like a big bruising team like the Panthers.
And I'm not sacrificing someone in the top six. Like I don't want McMahon to go down there and try to help that line and see Pontus back on the second line. Like let's prioritize. Like there's a reason why there's first line, second line, third line. Let's prioritize those top two lines. Let's make those as good as they possibly can be, which I think they are right now. Those are all their most skilled players in those top six positions. So it's just it's clearly they just still kind of have a depth issue, like in the bottom part of their lineup with size, with scoring ability.
Well, it's like what you've been saying. They thought they were addressing that with bringing in Scott Laughton, and it just hasn't. It just hasn't panned out. But again, they said this on Kipper and Bourne the other day. You didn't bring Scott Laughton in here to be a regular season guy for you. You brought him in here to make a difference in the playoffs. Yeah. So if you're him, if I'm Berube and I'm sitting with him, I'm going, listen, just spend these last, I don't know, however many games they have left.
12 games.
12 games. Just figuring out just get your head on straight because he's taking abuse right now from this fan base. There are two guys in this fan base right now that are getting abused on a nightly basis, and we'll bring up the other one in a second. I would just sit with Scott Laughton and I would go, take the next 12 games, figure it out, and as long as you can erase all of this if you play well in the playoffs and score a big goal in the playoffs. And you just got to we've got to figure out what the best spot for you is to have you make a difference on a nightly basis for us. And I think when the game, because the game does, I don't want to say slow down. It changes in the playoffs. It becomes a lot, every inch of ice is contested. And when you're a player that has the skill set of Scott Laughton, that should play more into his favor than sort of this north-south speed transition game. That's just not who he is.
I mean, another problem with Scott Laughton, too, is like me and like other Leaf fans, you're like, how much did I really know about Scott Laughton before they got him? Yeah. He played center for one of the worst teams in the NHL. But based off trade bait boards and insiders and guys who cover the league, they had this the way they categorize him is just like a good character guy who will be good if he fits in on a good team. So you're taking your word for that. I'm watching TSN. I'm going, okay, well, If these guys watch him on a nightly basis and say he's going to bring this to the team, then okay, he's going to bring this to the team. Maybe it's just Scott Laughton just isn't that guy. And we kind of got, you get rused by the media in a way, thinking you're getting a third line center. But I would love to talk to a Philadelphia Flyer diehard. I want them to come on here and tell me what exactly they saw from Scott Laughton all those years he played there. Because I never knew. There's no, like, getting Mikko Rantanen's different. It's like you're getting a guy who's a top player in this league. You're expecting points. But like for Scott Laughton, like, what really was he? What can he be? What can he do? I really didn't know coming in. And so far he's shown that he can't really do anything.
Yeah, no.
So it's a massive problem.
His best year with the Flyers, he had 18 goals.
And I don't want to give the guy shit because I feel bad for him. Like, I actually do want him to succeed. But I just can't. He's not, in my mind, I don't put him on that like pedestal. Like, this is the guy who needs to produce. Like, I don't know anything about him.
Yeah.
Maybe he just is a fourth line winger. And somehow Brad Treliving just somehow through the trade deadline, all the shenanigans that goes into that leading up, somehow this guy just turned into a first round pick to get him. And it's like, maybe he's
I think like that's a whole other discussion, but it goes back to what everyone talks about at the deadline, which is the prices for these guys are insane. And if you want, if you're a contender, if you're a team that wants to add to try and go on a run, you could be adding a fourth line plug, and the team you're getting him from is like, we need your best prospect.
Yeah, exactly.
To give you it just is what that's the way it works in the NHL these days.
Yeah, and I mean I trust there's scouting, there's guys who are in NHL buildings every single night. I'm sure they had their eye on Scott Laughton for a long time and liked a lot of things about him. But so far he just hasn't fixed their problem, and their problem is what we've been talking about for the first 20 minutes of this episode.
This NHL season has been as predictable as a puck rolling on its edge. No one knows where it's going. But that just means there's time for your favorite team to figure things out and games left for you to get in the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL.
It's super easy for first-timers to get started. Try betting on something simple like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. And if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
The next guy who is just really, really taking some shit from Leaf fans these days is Morgan Rielly. And I want to read you. This is every game that Morgan Rielly has had since acquiring Brandon Carlo. Okay. March 8th against Colorado, -2. March 10th against Utah, -1. March 13th against Florida, +1. March 15th against Ottawa, -1. March 17th against Calgary, +2. March 19th against Colorado, an even 0. March 20th against the New York Rangers, a -1. And March 22nd against the Nashville Predators, a -2. This has been a year-long struggle for Morgan Rielly. And there's something really wrong here. And I don't want to sit and dog the guy because he's been a great Maple Leaf and he's been here. He was a lot of people's choice for captain over the last few years. And he's just been here. He's been a warrior every year. He's the heart and solar, intangibles through the roof, that type thing. But this version of Morgan Rielly that has existed under Craig Berube has been a battle all year. And what do you see when you watch him play?
Like when you watch him on a nightly basis, what do you see?
I don't know. I guess I just see an average hockey player. I just see a guy who isn't doing anything special, and he's just kind of, I don't know. Like he's not really bringing anything to the table that you thought he would bring. He's not providing a lot of. This is the worst season of his career. Like if you go on his hockey DB for a guy who's been healthy all year, this is the worst season of his career.
By far.
So I mean, he's not providing offense. He's clearly not a shutdown guy. He's not as dynamic as he used to be. I don't know. Maybe he's just kind of into this. He's 31 years old now. Maybe he's just in the next phase of his career. He's just not going to be as dynamic as he used to be. And maybe this year is an outlier, and he'll come back next year and be better. Or maybe he'll do what he did when they beat Tampa in the playoffs, and he didn't have a good year that year either. And he played unbelievable in that first round, and I thought was a huge reason why they won that series. So, I mean, that's the only hope for him. It's like clearly this season's just not going the way he wanted to. I don't think it's going to turn around with 12 games left. So let's just hope he can find his game again going into the first round of the playoffs.
To me, when he's out there, it looks like, I don't want to say goes to sleep, but he kind of like, I've made a point the last few games when he's out there to just keep my eyes on him. And he really kind of floats out of position. And like the Panarin goal against the Rangers the other night, he just completely just ignored the fact that Panarin was standing right there at the side of the net. He just completely lost track of him. And it just, I don't know if it's a focus issue. I don't know if it's just maybe there's something going on like behind. Maybe he just is struggling with the way Berube wants him to play. I don't know. But it's been a tough year for Morgan Rielly, man. Tough.
I mean, I would like to see a stat of how players perform when they have a newborn child in their life. Like some analytical genius needs to just go and do the most in-depth research for me and figure that out. Because I mean, maybe he's just got some life changes going on, and it's just kind of affected his play. Like I don't really know, man. Like I just. And I'm always rooting for the guy. I think he can. Again, he's another one of those guys who can completely erase this season in 2 seconds if he has a good playoff. But yeah, he's just missing that. He used to be so fast and so dynamic with the puck, and it's just like that part is kind of gone from his game. And now he's not on PP1, and he's been demoted a little bit. And maybe it's just his confidence. He just looks like a guy who's not playing with a lot of confidence.
And I think when you look at, like, I read you those stats, and I think when you're him and you look at that and you're like, man, I'm a dash a lot of the time. Like this, like that
I'm a dash 21 this year. Like, that's not fun.
No. And it's like, that messes with you mentally, man. That messes with you mentally. And if you're him, same thing as Scotty Laughton. If you're him, just put your head down. It's a brand new season that starts in April. And forget that dash 21. And if you play well in the playoffs, no one will give a shit that you were dash 21 in the regular season. No one will give a shit. And he falls. I think the reason why he's taking it from the fan base right now, it's the same reason why a lot of these guys do. Like he makes $7.5 million.
Yeah, I think that's positive.
But that's the modern NHL that we live in, though. When you're paid that much money, especially on a team like this, where so much money is allocated to a certain group of guys. People have a visceral reaction to it.
Call me crazy, but I actually think about that in the complete opposite direction. I think it's positive that he's only making $7.5 million a year. He didn't rake this team over the coals like all these other idiots did. At least he's not Darnell Nurse making $9 million. Like there's a lot worse situations out there. This guy was their number one defenseman for a long time, and he said, "You know what? Give me 7.5, and I'll stay here, and I'll be the number one guy." To me, I don't look at it like that way. I mean, it could be a way. He could have been like, I want 10 million, and it could have been a way worse. But yeah, it's not a good situation.
Listen, he could have been like, I want 10 million, and Kyle Dubas was the GM, would have gave it to him, no problem.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
like
that was arguably the best negotiation / signing that front office did. It was like all of a sudden he was just signed for $7.5 million, and it was over and done with. And you were like, wow, that's actually really unselfish of Morgan Rielly for a guy who's been their number one guy. He could have asked for a lot more. Ask Edmonton Oilers fans how they like paying Darnell Nurse $9 million a year.
It's true. It's true.
So I think that's I don't want to hear that. That angle to me is a little overblown. Like it's.
No, I don't disagree with you that like in a comparison to a Darnell Nurse, it's a lot better. Yes, but I think just the general. We're going to talk about this in a second when we talk about John Tavares, but the general feeling with like money plays a huge role in how people look at this team. That's just in a salary cap league with a team that is paying 4 guys a shit ton of money. Like it's at the forefront of people's minds when they analyze this team.
Yet we're complaining about the bottom 6.
Like, it's true.
Yet we're like, oh, what does Berube do? Who do we put in here? What do we do? Why is our bottom 6 suck? And then, this team's really top heavy, and they really have allocated their money to a lot of top players. So the fucking answer to everything about this team is the 4 guys, no matter what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, dude, I said that off the top with at the end of the day, like if you look at the Nashville game in isolation, like that's. Best players set the tone. Said it 300 times in the last couple of weeks. The best players packed it in after they went up 2-0, and it permeates to the rest of the team. And that's that. It's your leaders. What happened on Monday? Austin Matthews spoke to the team ahead of the game and led the way and said, "We're going to pay attention to details. We're going to get this shit together." And what happened? They rattled off 3 wins. Okay. Yeah. Saturday night, what do? They go up 2-0. They go, this Predator team sucks. We can pack it in and get ready to go home and blah, blah, blah. And nope. Give up 5 unanswered. Can't get it back on the rails. Sitting on the bench looking fucking bewildered. How many times have we seen that? Listen, we can talk about the bottom. I told you I wasn't going to go off on a rant.
I know. That's what I mean. I don't want to get too far into the deep end here, but it is really frustrating when you have to come on here and be like, why does the bottom 6 suck? And it's like, because they can't improve it, because they can't, like they just can't because of their situation.
They don't have any money.
That's why.
Yeah, because they're paying these guys so much fucking money. That's why.
It's like, no, we're paying you to be 2 players, basically. Yep. We need you to be good enough that you can cover for the bottom 6.
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's move on.
Moving on. Yes. Moving on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about John Tavares. They were talking about him this week on sports radio, and he's been red hot this week. Another 30-goal season. And I think it's interesting to my point that I was just making about the salary cap and how the financials of everything are so at the forefront of people's minds. If you look at John Tavares and the numbers he's put up here, plus the sentimental fact that he came home, and you compare him with Leaf greats of the past, what's the difference? Like they all have the same amount of cups. They all have the same, like, sure, John Tavares has never gone past the second round, but like Matt's never went past none of these guys went to a cup final. Doug never went to a cup final. Wendell, Darryl, none of them. So it's like, you and I are just as guilty of it, man. How many times have we come on here and been like, John Tavares, oh my God. And I think if you take a step back and look at it like holistically, like this guy has been everything he was advertised to be when they brought him in here all those years ago. And his point production has been fantastic. I think taking the C off his you don't buy into this, but I 100% buy into this. I think taking the C off his jersey this year has only helped loosen him up a little more, and he's had a really damn good year. But I do think a lot of the negativity sometimes that gets thrown John Tavares' way has entirely to do with how much money he's paid. Like, people didn't throw that shit in Matt Sundin's face because it wasn't a salary cap era. No one cared what anyone was making. But now, because we live in a hard cap era and because this team has chosen to go in a unique direction where they're paying a small amount of guys so much money, people are really sour about that. And I think we don't, as a fan base, when John Tavares eventually hangs it up, you're going to look back on his tenure here and be like, he was a damn good hockey player for this team. And I think at times we overlooked that because we just focused on the $11 million.
Well, it's hard not to. It's really, that's the problem. That's going to be to me, when I look back on his Maple Leaf career, that's what it's going to be about. It's going to be about, we brought in a really good player for way too much money. And for as consistent as he's been and for how good he is, he's just simply not worth what they're paying him. And I think that's the story of his career. First overall pick, who was just like an absolute legend in junior. But if you look at his NHL career, he didn't really live up to the hype. Like he really didn't. He's a great player. He's a if you look at his career, he's a borderline Hall of Famer. He's a guy who can put up 80 points every single year, score 30 goals or whatever. But he just never really like hit that mark. And I think when the Leafs brought him in here, it's like, oh, you're bringing in like almost like a second Austin Matthews. Like now we have two elite top centermen. And I think I think he was just kind of overhyped his entire career. He's a great player, but he is a second line center. He's not a first line center. So, I mean, I don't know. This is a really weird conversation for me because I think it's always going to be his number and the money that he makes is always going to overshadow anything he did because it's just the facts. And the next contract he's going to sign with this team is the contract he should have came in. That's the number he should have been at this entire time for the production that he brings. And I'm kind of excited for that. I'm really interested to see where that number's at and how that negotiation's going to go. But yeah, he's a great player, but he just did not live up to what he was supposed to live up to for what he was paid for. I think that's what his Leaf career has been.
There's definitely going to be people disagreeing with you in the comments.
I mean, come on, look at his numbers, man. Like, come on, like you're like 60 points, 50 points, 76 points, 80 points. We're not talking about a GOAT here. Like we're talking about a very good player. Like if he left this team right now, they would be screwed because that's 30 goals of depth you're throwing out the window. And that's extremely valuable. But for a guy who came in here and was like a number one center and a captain of another franchise and a guy who signed a double-digit contract, the guy's never had over 90 points in his career. He's scoring over 40 goals once. So yeah, he's a very good player, but he's not, we're not talking about a GOAT here. Like we're talking about just a very solid producer in the NHL, but we're not talking about elite talent. We're not.
Yeah. I think a guy that he gets lumped in with a bit is like, dude, would you buy into like a Stamkos comparison for him? Because if you look at Stamkos numbers, like aside from the fact that he had,
he's a more prolific goal scorer, Steven Stamkos.
Yes.
Like he's a better goal scorer.
Yeah. So like he had the 1 year where he scored 60 goals, but if you look at their point totals, it's not that different. It's not a massive difference.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this was that name was kind of, I was going to bring that into my next argument about what this guy's contract and what that negotiation is going to look like. If you think about his contract coming up, it's a really interesting situation because I guarantee you he doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to go somewhere else because now he's home and his whole life's here. So why would you want to leave? But also there's kind of like a principle thing. It's like I still produce 30 goals in this league. I can still put up 60 points. I'm still one of the top kind of second line guys in the league. So is he going to have a hard number that he can't play for? Like, if they're like, we can only pay you $5 million. He goes, well, I can only play for like 7.5. Would he potentially leave over a principle like that? And I think the Leafs are in a good situation because playing the Nashville Predators, if he has that mentality, you could just pull up a picture of Steven Stamkos, show it to him and go, how do you think this guy's feeling in Nashville right now?
Yep. With his $8 million.
Yeah. He could have just been like, you know what? I've made some good money in my career.
Steven Stamkos is irrelevant. They dropped the puck last night. I'm like, holy fuck, there's Steven Stamkos. Like, haven't thought about the guy at all.
It's like Steven Stamkos had some principle and he was like, I'm sorry. I think I'm worth this money. I still produce this. And the Tampa Bay Lightning said, all right, bud, see you later. And what has he done? He's gone to Nashville and now he's totally irrelevant. And he's, quite frankly, is not even close to what he used to be. So, well, that's where the Leafs have John Tavares by the balls a little bit.
I see. I don't necessarily agree with that because that is not the case if fucking Brendan Shanahan is sitting there. I'm sorry. Like if this team, Brendan Shanahan has proven he will. Can I just go on a side tangent here? They show him in the press box last night, looking all sad. It's like, fuck off, man. Like this is you're the one that phoned after. Don't worry, we're not gonna let any of you guys go. And you're sitting there all sad. Get out of here. This is your mess, buddy. I have never 180'd on someone as much as I've 180'd on Brendan Shanahan. Don't even show him to me. Like, don't even show him to me. Get out of here. Let Brad report directly to Keith and the board. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for changing the jerseys. They look sick. See you later.
Thanks for putting the names up on the rafters.
Like don't get me wrong. Like, you've done some good work. We appreciate it, but it's like, and this is why I'm getting so triggered right now, because what you just said is exactly what they should do. They should Julian Brisebois, John Tavares, and say, if you want to stay here, you're taking a haircut. Full stop. Because we
taking
sit
$5
here
million
on this,
a year for 3 years. Like, that's what you're doing.
We're sitting here on this podcast being like, well, they don't have enough. Like, their bottom six is a mess. What do they do? They need more money that they can allocate to that area of their team, and it's coming from John. Sorry. So, and if he's going to play hardball and say, I want 7-8 million, go to Nashville. But I do not trust his father, Brendan Shanahan, to allow that to happen.
If they don't, like, it's a weird situation, because the guy just, again, scored 30 goals in the NHL. So it's like, you have to be fair to a certain degree here. Like, you're not going to the guy being like, here's $3 million, take it. Like, no, he's still worth like a decent number in this league. So like, you do have to play hardball, but there also is some respect of, like, guys who score 30 goals in this league don't make $3 million a year. Like, they should make more than that. But at the same time, for this whole era, it's kind of like, imagine if John Tavares' cap hit just disappeared and he had more money to play with. And it's finally come to the day where that has happened. It's insane how fast time goes by from the day where he signed that contract to now. That cap hit is going to be gone. It's fucking scary, but you have to come up with a fair number in your head and just be like, sorry, bud, we need this extra $5 to $6 million in cap space with the haircut you're going to have to take. And if you want to stay here, then you can continue your legacy here, keep scoring 30 goals, have a good time, still be on a good team. Or you can be a hero, want more money, and go have fun being irrelevant with Steven Stamkos in Nashville.
So the number that we've seen thrown around is 7 million right now. Would you Julian Brisebois that, or would you be like, okay,
I would,
I'll
to me,
think about
that's the highest. That's the highest I can go. I would prefer a number with a 6. 5 might be insulting. I don't know. I think somewhere in the 6 range is pretty fair.
The thing that these guys are all going to argue, like his side is going to go, okay, as currently constituted with today's salary cap, you could look at him and go, okay, well, you're a $5.5 million hockey player. But he's going to say, look how much the cap is going up in the next 3 years. I want to be compensated for that. And that's where I think that 7, maybe even 8 number is coming from.
Then do the right. I would just look at him and be like, do the right thing, man.
Yeah.
Do the right thing. Or, you know what? I'm clamoring for change anyways. Like, you know what? If you have to go out the door for the change that we need, then so be it. See you later. But obviously, you're still a valuable player. You can still score 30 goals. We really love you in our lineup. But we kind of need to change anyways. So if you're not going to take this, there's the door. Like, see you later. You do the right thing, man. You're telling me the 11 million you've made over the past 7 seasons hasn't set your family up for generations to come? Do you want to stay here?
All the other stuff that comes with being a Leaf.
Yeah. Do you want to stay here and be a part of a winning program and still be our second line center and producing 30 goals a year? And every single year we have a shot to go to the playoffs. And now with this money that you're being so generous of giving us back, we can now go fix that third line problem that we have been spending 20 minutes today talking about. Someone's got to do the right thing at some point here. Like, and I would just sell that to them. And it's like, if you don't want to do that, then we need change anyways. And you can go play in Columbus and have fun.
And this is like you brought up Stamkos. It's like Julian Brisebois and the Lightning. We're like, listen, like if we pay you too much money, we are not going to be able to stay at the top of the Atlantic. And that's where we want to stay. And it's just, I'm sorry. Like, this is why
Stamkos would redo that decision if he had to go back now?
Yes. Like, 100% he would. Battling. They're right there. They're right there. The Leafs, there is a very conceivable world where the Leafs don't do what they need to do. The Panthers don't do what they need to do. And the Lightning get the 1 seed in the Atlantic. Like, they're right there. Of 100%. This is why I'm so fucking mad at Brendan Shanahan, because Julian Brisebois is just a savage. He's trying to win hockey games. He's trying to win cups.
Yeah.
The Colorado Avalanche are savages. They're trying to win hockey games. They're trying to win cups. Brendan Shanahan just wants to give these guys a little hug and say, it's okay. Don't worry.
Yeah. I think the way the new NHL is going to, it's like if you're Matthew Nyes, you have to play like some hardball. I know he's an RFA, so there's only so much he can do. But like to me, it's like you're a young guy. You can get paid a lot of money in this league for being a young, talented guy. So I would try and cash in as much as you possibly can cash in. But if you're a guy who's 30 who's 33, 34 years old and you're still a good player in this league, other teams aren't going to care and they're going to lowball you and you're not going to get the money that you thought you were going to get 5-10 years ago. It's just that teams can't do it. You just can't do it.
Ryan, I don't know what you're talking about. The Leafs need to give Matt Nyes $12 million. Did you not listen to sports radio this week? Every 31 other teams are lining up with offer sheets. Like you need to give Matt Nyes $20 million. You got to do it. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, it's just, again, that's just the way it is. It's just like young players are going to get the bag, and guys like Steven Stamkos and John Tavares, who've had great careers but are on the back half of their careers, they're just not going to get that big contract anymore. They're going to have to settle for less. And Steven Stamkos did those guys no favors this season, because it's like, hey, I went to Nashville and I signed for this number. And now the guy's done nothing. He's irrelevant. No one could play with him. The team's in last place.
The one bit of slack I will cut Steven Stamkos is no one thought the Nashville Predators were going to be this terrible. Everyone thought they were at least a playoff team. And like no one thought they were going to be this bad. So, so when he signed with them, he was like, I'm signing with a team that is still a playoff team and could potentially, if the pieces fall into place, go on a run in the West. No one saw them being 30th in the NHL.
Yeah. I think he did the Leafs a favor, though, in terms of helping this current negotiation with Tavares, because
unless you know who steps in and says, let's just give him whatever he wants so everyone's happy.
It's a joke. Like if there's ever time to play hardball, it's now. Like it's now.
Yeah, 100%. And
what do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose. All you have to lose is you lose a little bit of competitiveness in the first round. You don't win anyway. So like, what do you have to lose?
Listen, there's a clip going around this morning of Sheldon Keefe after the New Jersey Devils lost last night, where they're asking, Kovacevic says after the game that they just need to have a playoff mindset. And Keefe just cuts the guy off and he goes, Kovacevic needs to play better, and then walks off. Where the fuck was that here? Oh, you know where it was? Brendan was like, you can't talk to them like that, Sheldon. You can't. You need to go and say sorry. They don't like when you talk to them like that. Ridiculous.
I told you, I always liked Sheldon Keefe. I never had a problem with the guy. It's just like, it's just a...
And again, I'm sure Sheldon Keefe will come out today or tomorrow and be like, sorry, I was heated after the game. But like, if you ever needed proof that this culture of acquiescing to these guys is built and held up by Brendan Shanahan, that's all the proof you need there.
If there's anything that this franchise and this team needs, it needs a heated moment that someone apologizes later for. I would welcome that. This is what the problem is with it. I would love for someone to come out and say something awful about somebody else and then come out the next day and be like, sorry, I was just heated. That's what's missing with this team. There's no one's ever heated. Everyone's always, I was disappointing. We got to be better. We believe in the group, blah, blah, blah. Let's get heated. Let's get angry. Let's get pissed off.
Well, that's what Matthews after the game last night was like, we lost, so who cares about mine and Mitch's set play goal? And it's like, okay, you're kind of getting there. There you go. You're kind of getting there. All right, buddy. This is a long episode today, so we're gonna get out of here. The Leafs, they're headed out west this week. They're at home on Tuesday against Scott Laughton's ex-Philadelphia Flyers, and then Thursday, your favorite, a 10:30 start against the San Jose Sharks. And then they're in California next. We will not have a Sunday episode next weekend because the Leafs are playing the Anaheim Ducks at 8:00 that night. So looking at the schedule, I'm thinking we'll be back on Friday to discuss the Tuesday game against Philadelphia and then the Thursday game against the San Jose Sharks. And then we'll be back probably the following Monday after a back-to-back weekend against LA and Anaheim. So if you'd like to join us for those, hit the like and subscribe button below. As I say every week, we're weeks away from the playoffs, which means post-game shows. We'll be doing a post-game show after every single Leafs playoff game. So hit the like and subscribe button. If you're listening to the audio version, please do the same.
Spread the word. Tell your friends.
We really appreciate it. We will see you guys on Friday.